Говорит и показывает Москва. В эфире программа Ushanka Show. Здравствуйте, дорогие товарищи. Hello, comrades, and welcome back to Ushanka Show. My name is Sergey, and I was born in USSR. Меня зовут Сергей, я родился в Советском Союзе. Welcome back to Ushanka Show Storytime. Today is a part 3, story of my paternal grandparents. One of my viewers requested to show spelling in Russian and English the names of my uncles and aunts, so we're gonna start with that. My uncle Andrei. Andrei is a very popular name in Russia, and it's still popular, so it didn't change all the way from 20s. And I was surprised when I came to the United States to find out that this name is also quite popular around here too. My aunt Zina. Zina is actually a short form for Zinaida. It's a little bit outdated name. I think it's still going around, but not very popular. My aunt Nina. Also a little bit old-fashioned name, but I think it's still around. Nina. My uncle Volodya. Volodya is actually a short form for Vladimir. So little kids, you don't call them Vladimir, they're Volodya. Или даже Vova. But Vladimir is still very popular, and it's very old name. It goes way back, and it means the owner of the world. Владеть миром. Vladimir. My uncle Josip. Actually, Josip is a Ukrainian version of the Russian name Iosif, which is also a Russian version of the name Joseph. So, Josip, Iosif, Joseph. Really antiquated name. No one named their kids Josip, Iosif anymore. It's completely out. My aunt Marusia. I believe Marusia is the Ukrainian version of the Russian name Maria, which is like Mary. Also not very popular, I don't think. I've seen for a long time any girls called Marusia. But there's a famous Ukrainian song, I have said, Дивлюся, де моя Маруся. But it's an old song. My favorite uncle Pavlo. Pavlo is Ukrainian version of Russian name Pavel. That name kind of went away, then came back, so now it's popular again. As a person who grew up in the Soviet Union, if I hear name Pavel, I'm thinking about two like heroes in the Soviet Union. First one is Pavlik Morozov. So Pavlik is like a kid form of Pavel. That's the kid that betrayed his own father, reported on him to NKVD. And the second person is Pavel Korchagin, who was a character in the famous novel Как закалялась сталь, How the Steel Was Tempered. So that's two people, or one is the imaginary person that I think of when I hear the name Pavel. My father Kolya, which is a short form for Nikolai, and that name is still extremely popular. A lot of kids still Nikolais, and in fact my son Oliver, his middle name is Nikolai, so he is Oliver Nikolai. And my aunt Oля, actual name is Olga. This is very old, ancient name, and it still remains extremely popular. Alright, so now we return back to our main story, my paternal grandparents and relations between my family and my grandparents on that side. So your favorite comrade, Sergei Sputnikov, was born in July of 1971, and several months later, so sometimes around October of the same year, my mother took me to Karpovцы village to show to her parents-in-law, I guess you can call them. Of course, I don't remember anything. I was only a couple months old, but according to my mom, she stayed there for a couple of weeks. And, it's already like October, so it was getting chilly. And I had an issue. So I had, of course, a pacifier, and I was sucking so hard on that pacifier. So my mom became concerned that I might be swallow it almost, or rip it apart and choke on it. So Grandma Uliana told my mom that the best way to fix the problem is to cut the tip of the pacifier, that rubbery tip, so then the air will go through easily and there won't be any concerns about me, choking on that pacifier. But now I began sucking in cold October air. I guess my mom was taking me for walks all the time on the stroller. So I got very sick. I began coughing. So I ended up with a two-sided pneumonia, can't say that word correctly, so воспаление легких. I had a horrible cough, and my mom ended up going to a local hospital. There was no hospital in the Karpovci village, so she went to town, and she stayed with me for almost 2 weeks, and I was in very bad shape. They barely saved me, so I was very close to dying. That's how bad I messed up my lungs by sucking that cold air. And since then, I was kind of having issues with my lungs. I was getting bronchitis almost every winter. So, of course, my mom wasn't happy because she listened to advice of her mother-in-law and ended up almost killing her first baby. If you follow my channel, you should be familiar with the story how my family struggled with the housing in Kiev. We were stuck in dorms for 5 years, sharing a small room with another family. It's insane, but this is the beauty of the Soviet-free housing. Then my mother managed to get a little tiny Gostinka apartment. So this is a Gostinka, means that's the size of the hotel room. So it's a single room, tiny kitchen, tiny bathroom. But it was, of course, way better than sharing a room with another family. But still, sharing a tiny room with a kid, it's not optimal housing situation. So my mom was looking at the options. So that was around 1980, and her job already provided her this apartment, so there was no chance to get a bigger, like 2-room apartment. And my father at that time worked at the Kiev aircraft factory, Antonov, and they had 20 years waiting list for the apartment. So my 1980, if my dad would be waiting, only in 2000 he would get a free 2-room apartment. But of course by 2000 there was no more Soviet Union, there was no more waiting lists and free apartments. And if you're interested in this topic, I have almost a half an hour, so super long and super boring video called Soviet Mortgage, How My Family Struggled to Buy an Apartment in 1980. So you're welcome to pause this video, put the like, of course, and then check out that video. As I mentioned, if you're interested in details, please check that video, Soviet Mortgage. But pretty much my mother was had these two options: or wait 20 years in this little tiny apartment, Gostinka, and then hopefully to get a 2-room apartment, or purchase an apartment which was called cooperative apartments, кооперативная квартира, and those were quite pricey. Another interesting detail, so when you get in free, well, it wasn't really a free apartment because you never owned the apartment, you still had to pay rent. It was cheap rent, but you still have to pay every month, so-called kvartplata. But for family of 3, you were allowed to get only 2-room apartment, not 2-bedroom apartment, 2 rooms apartment. Now, if you purchase apartment through this cooperative deal, you could get 3 rooms. So that's what my mom decided. We're gonna get cooperative apartment and we're gonna get 3 rooms. And of course, more rooms, more money, higher the price. 3-room apartment that we picked, I believe the price was 14,000 rubles. So my parents' monthly income was around 300 rubles. So somewhere around 4,000 rubles a year. So you can make your math if what is your annual income, and 14,000 rubles price the apartment when you make 4,000 rubles the family income for a year. And the problem was that you had to come up with 30% down payment, which in our case was 4,200 rubles, so close to our annual income. and the rest would be 15-year, pretty much like a mortgage with low interest. I think it was like 3%. Of course, my family didn't have so much money. I mean, 1980, they just got married, about 10 years prior. It's hard to save so much money, right, for the young family. So my mom went to talk to her parents, and my grandpa Sergey, he was very tight with money, and despite the fact that he had a little tiny pension, something like 50 rubles per month, he managed to save 3,000 rubles. That's all he had. And they made a deal that he will let mom take the money. It wasn't a loan. It was like he would give us the money, this 3,000 rubles. But in exchange, when they get old and won't be able to live in the village in the log cabin, in the winter they will come and stay with us and we'll take care of them. So that was the agreement. So we got 3,000 rubles and we were still shy of 1,200 rubles. Actually, I forgot to mention that my father always had a financial advisor, or any situation advisor, his younger sister Olga. I don't know why, but anything he had questions, he would also always talk to her and ask for her advice. So she recommended not to get 3-room apartment, but get 2-room apartment because it was cheaper. And my mom thinks another reason because Olga had 2-room apartments, so she really didn't want us to have a bigger, nicer apartment. But I can't confirm nor deny my mom's allegations. But that's another kind of backstory that Olga, my aunt, advised us not to get 3-room apartment because it's too expensive, too big for you guys. Just get a 2-room apartment. So now my dad, it was his turn to find 1,200 rubles, which not a big deal. You have 8 siblings and you have your parents, so it's quite easy to find and borrow 1,200 rubles, not just give us money. We would borrow 1,200 rubles and pay back. So he went to the village to talk to his brothers and sisters and his parents to borrow this 1,200 rubles so we can get that apartment. And guess what? Several days later he came back to Kiev and he brought nothing. Not a single person gave him a single ruble. 8 siblings, and no one was willing to help us. But whatever. So pretty much we were out of luck, no down payment and no apartment. Just by total luck, out luck, but now we have total luck. My father was at work and he was just complaining to his co-workers that he has this horrible situation that he needs 1,200 rubles in a week's time. Otherwise, we're going to lose our chance to get this apartment. And one of his co-workers, his friend, said, you know what, let me talk to my mother who also lived out in the village somewhere out in the country. And that lady sent her savings, 1,200 rubles. I think he went there and brought them in 1 ruble bills and 3 ruble bills. And that's how we managed to put together a down payment to buy this 3-room cooperative apartment. And of course, after we put down payment, I don't remember, we probably waited a year or something for the apartment building to be ready. And then we moved in when I was in the 3rd grade. So it's about 1981, somewhere there, because I started school in 1978. So awesome. I had my own room, 3-room apartment, 60 square meters. Everything was great. But of course, for my parents, things weren't that great because now they had 60 rubles a month, this mortgage payment. So when you make 300 rubles and you pay 60 rubles a month, so that's close to 20% of your income? That's quite a bit. Then, of course, they had to pay back this 1,200 rubles loan to my dad's co-workers. So our finances became tight. So we actually had a Soviet mortgage and kind of almost like an American lifestyle. You have a nice apartment, but suddenly money is very, very, very tight. But guess what? Suddenly we started getting letters and phone calls from our relatives on my dad's side paternal relatives. Hey, your niece is planning to attend college in Kiev and she needs a place to stay. She really doesn't want to stay in dorms, and you have a 3-room apartment. Uh, could you let her stay in your apartment, in one of the rooms, because you have 3 rooms, you got so much space. They'll be so great because, we are relatives, we need to help each other. So you see where I'm going with it, right? So when we needed help, no one provided any, not a single ruble. And then suddenly, all our relatives remembered that we are relatives and now we need to help. So my mother was vivid. I think it's the correct expression. She was so mad because there was quite a few phone calls and letters. And hey, why don't you let us, our kids to stay with you guys? So she ended up writing this really nasty, scorching letter and explained that there's no one gonna stay in our apartment. There were no more phone calls from the paternal side of my family. I bet there was a massive butthurt on that side, but they refused to help us to buy an apartment, so my mom didn't feel obliged to help them when they had their kids heading towards Kiev to go to some college. In the following years, I visited Karpovci village only once. I was probably about 14. I think we went there early spring or late fall, I don't remember. That's when I learned how to ride the bike. I think I had a story about that too on my channel. And that's when my uncle Pavlo gave me 10 rubles. Otherwise, we always went to Chernigov region to my mother's grandparents, and we spent there every summer. And the relations with the paternal side of my family was pretty icy cold. My mother even didn't bother invite anyone from that side of my family when my brother was getting married in Kiev. I think they happened around 2006 or maybe 2008, don't remember either, but there was no one from that side of the family. Well, that's all that I have to say about that. I hope you enjoyed the story, and in my next video we'll talk about my grandfather Trofim experience during the World War II, or as we call it, Great Patriotic War. But until then, we'll talk to you soon. До свидания. Goodbye. Cool Comrades is available at the Ushanka store at teespring.com. Just a friendly reminder that my book American Diaries is available on amazon.com, or shoot me an email if you would like to have a signed copy. Thank you. And if you love my channel and would like to show your support, please click on the link below this video and become the patron of the Ushanka Show. For as little as $1, you can help us grow and create the new interesting videos about the life in Soviet Union.